Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Boxing Nuke.
Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just get right into it. Saul Canelo Alvarez, coming off a majority decision victory over Gennady Golovkin Triple G, has a WBC mandatory in Jermall Charlo that everyone seems to be talking about. Jermall Charlo is 27-0 with 21 knockouts. He's an established power puncher. He's 6 feet tall, and he has very long reach, which is 73.5 inches. He's a fighter out of Houston, Texas. His last 3 victories came by way of knockout, starting with Hugo Centeno Jr., getting knocked out in the second round. Then he knocked out Jorge Sebastian Hyland in the 4th, and prior to that, he knocked out Julian Williams in the 5th. And so that's a very interesting last 3 fights for Jermall Charlo. He's tall, he's lengthy, and he has power, which could be a dangerous fight for Canelo Alvarez. In addition to that, he has experience with a very good B-level fighter, such as an Austin Trout, the same Austin Trout that Canelo Alvarez had trouble with. Canelo Alvarez beat him the exact same way. Basically didn't get a knockout, but it went to decision, and ultimately they both got the victory and the nod. And so that'll be a very interesting matchup. Neither one of the guys seem to be able to get the knockout against an Austin Trout, but just offhand, looking at Saul Canelo Alvarez, his experience, his record, and his boxing style, he's clearly going to be the better boxer. He's clear has the edge in experience. He's clearly proven to be an elite fighter, while Jermall Charlo, he's not proven to be an elite fighter. He doesn't have great experience against top-level opposition. He's never been in there with the best. So there's a lot of guys out here calling out and stating that Jermall Charlo is the second coming of the next big thing in the middleweight division. It's possible he could be. He could be a very dangerous opponent. He has the skill set and the physical capabilities to be that. But as of right now, he's done nothing to separate himself to prove that he's at that level or he's ready for that level of competition. Now I understand that he has the title shot with the WBC, the mandatory spot. Saul Canelo Alvarez is rumored to be taking a fight at Madison Square Garden in December, so that he could ultimately choose to fight Jermall Charlo if he liked, or even in May. Now, if you look at it and break it down a little bit, there's a rumored fight with Canelo Alvarez and David Lemieux. I think the fight that makes the most sense is David Lemieux versus Jermall Charlo, to see who fights Canelo at that point. I think it'll be a good step-up fight for Jermall Charlo, just to kind of prove that he belongs in the middleweight against good competition. And David Lemieux's not an elite or A-level fighter, but he's a good, solid B-level fighter with good power. I think Jermall Charlo has a lot to prove, and I think that'll also help him build his name. Jermall Charlo versus Canelo Alvarez, in my opinion, is not a 50-50 fight. It's nowhere near that. Canelo Alvarez walks through Jermall Charlo and beats him up pretty bad, in my opinion, completely outboxes him. Canelo Alvarez has already proven that he has a solid chin, and basically if you can walk through the fire with the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the middleweight in Triple G, I have no doubt that Jermall Charlo is not something you should fear or be worried about, especially a guy who's fought other guys who's had nothing to prove. Take a look at his last victory against Hugo Centeno Jr. Now, when he fought Hugo Centeno Jr. had already been knocked out by Machai Sulecki, and basically Sulecki was an undefeated fighter moving up from 154 to 160, and everyone gave him shit because Daniel Jacobs was fighting him. And I'm like, well, Jermall Charlo fought Hugo Centeno, a guy who's already knocked out, and Daniel Jacobs was fighting an undefeated fighter. Sometimes, unfortunately, people like to pick and choose and fanboy for fighters. Jermall Charlo is one of the biggest fighters that a lot of people seem to fanboy for, but these are honest facts, and this is the 100% truth. Jermall Charlo, Canelo Alvarez is not a fucking 50-50 fight. That shit's not even close. Jermall Charlo has proven nothing, done nothing, but he is the #1 contender. He does have size and strength to make the fight interesting. I would love to see it, and the interesting thing about it is, depending on when Canelo decides to take that fight, will show me a lot about how much Canelo thinks about Jermall Charlo. If Jermall Charlo thinks he's a tune-up, he may take it in December. But then again, Jermall Charlo has a fight supposedly for November, is a rumor out there. So if he does, then there's no way, obviously, Canelo can take him on in December. He'll have to look for May or September of next year. And that'll probably be the soonest 2 dates. Or if Canelo Alvarez wants to unify, he'll fight the winner of Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andre. Or he could end up fighting the winner of Sergey Deverenchenko versus Danny Jacobs. So Canelo Alvarez has a lot of options, including the Triple G rematch, and some of these are big money options, big name options. So you can trust that Canelo Alvarez won't be pressured to make any decision, and he's not short of any opponent. Whoever he faces next will be a very good opponent, even if it's a tune-up. And by the time May rolls around, he'll have a very elite level opponent scheduled. So I have no doubt that they're going to make a great fight. But as far as Jermall Charlo, there's no rush for that. That fight mandatory will be called eventually, but probably won't be called until later next year. It's basically up to Canelo Alvarez is if he's willing to fight this guy right away or to push it back. Once again, it's the IBFP. Please subscribe.